Hey guys, welcome back. Do a quick live stream today. Not so quick, it'll probably take about an hour. Kind of testing the waters on the live stream deal. But I pulled this engine out of a Toyota truck the other day, and my engine shop says that they're a couple of weeks out, up to a month. So I've built several of these for myself in the past. So we're going to tear this apart, see if we can find out what's going on with it. It had a rattle and a little bit of a knock. So I'm suspecting timing chain and some bearing issues. It has 250,000 miles. So we got to get it on the engine stand and then we'll tear it apart. And if you guys have any questions, put those in the comments down below. I have Valerie here helping me, so she'll read off the questions to me while I'm working. Everything okay? To get it on the engine stand, I need to pull the clutch and flywheel off. So the clutch is all 12mm bolts. Flywheel bolts are 17mm. Should be one bolt holding this plate on here.
Would you like me to read comments or just questions?
Either one.
Matt Walker says, hey, watching all the way from Indiana.
Matt, it's way past your bedtime. Because it's like, what, 9:30 here?
Yeah.
So are you 10:30, 11:30? You got work in the morning, Matt. One thing that's a common thing to forget to take off before we put it on the engine stand is this rear plate. If you don't take it off now, it's very difficult to take it off later when it's mounted to the engine stand. There should be a couple bolts from the bottom here.
It's 11:30 in Indiana, and Matt Brennan is asking, what is wrong with the engine as far as why you pulled it out?
It's got 250,000 miles. It makes a rattling noise all the time. It sounds like timing chain. And it also has a knock once it gets warmed up. And it also sounded like it had some piston slap. So more than likely, it's going to need at least new standard pistons, if not oversized. And then also when we mount it to the engine stand, we don't want to mount to these lower brackets because those come off. So I'm just going to pull those out of the way now. And I don't know if this engine's ever been rebuilt before. More than likely it has been with 250,000 miles. They normally don't last that long. Everyone says that the 22RE motor is a very reliable and dependable motor. I've had lots of them and everyone that I've had, I've ended up buying it because it was broken. They're very common for head gasket failures, timing chain guide failures. So I don't think they're the most reliable engine. Maybe the most reliable engine in the 80s when this engine came out. But as far as reliability, I prefer the Toyota 3.4 liters or even the 4-liter engines out of the newer stuff. I'm going to grab a couple of shorter bolts. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, we normally don't rebuild engines at our shop, except for our own personal vehicles. But my engine guy is, well, he's almost into summer mode, and in the summer he normally spends most of his time at the lake. So right now he's getting ready to de-winterize all of his stuff, his boat and his RV. So he's spending less time at the shop building engines. See how much stuff we leak out here. Am I too close to you there? Am I too close to you? Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is pull the intake manifold off and the exhaust off. There's one very common bolt that most people forget, and they struggle and struggle until they break the intake. There is a, it might be hard to see from the distance, but there's an Allen bolt right here in the intake manifold. And then the rest of them are just 12mm headed nuts and bolts all the way around the intake manifold here. And we can also pull the EGR valve off at the same time. So Matt, if you're still with us, as Is your mom and Greg still visiting? We heard they were heading out there.
He's still with us. He just asked a question.
Oh.
Matt Walker says, "You are the most productive human being I have ever known. Do you ever stop working? And how do you choose what work to show in your videos?"
On my daily stuff, I try to, if possible, record common repair procedures, especially on newer cars and especially on do-it-yourself models. A lot of Subaru and Toyota guys will work on their own vehicles. Not so much on like Cadillacs and stuff like that. Most Cadillac owners don't work on their own vehicles. So I normally don't film any of that stuff, although I did film a Cadillac drivability thing today. But until I get home and look at the footage, I won't know if I have enough information there to make a good video out of it.
His parents are still there.
Are they going to leave or are they planning on moving there? I was talking to your mom about it a while back, and she told me that you sent her some houses that were for sale. Putting a bug in her ear to move over there.
Matt Walker says, "My mom wants to move here. Greg wants to stay."
Well, I guess Greg has a pretty good job. It might be hard to transfer somewhere else and look for another position like he has now. But I can see your mom wanting to be near you guys. How's work going, Matt? I'm just taking some of the miscellaneous stuff off from underneath here because there's a couple of bolts that are blocked.
Matt says, "Yeah, well, there are casinos here in Shelbyville."
The poker room in the basement doesn't count, Matt. One here, it's fighting me. Okay, there's a water pipe that connects to the intake. It's normally easier just to take the bolts out of the water pipe than it is to get the hose clamps off of the coolant hose. I went to our old auto shop today, Matt. It's changed a lot. It's definitely not the auto shop that we used to go to. They have all kinds of fancy equipment. And I went in today to make a list of it all because the instructor is going to let me go in and use the equipment to make videos, which is pretty cool. I wish we had the equipment that they have now back when we were in that class.
George Bonnie 90 gives you a thumbs up. Matt Walker says, "Haha, work is good. Can't share too many details on this kind of forum. 3D metal printing is my latest gig. We should talk sometime." The school shop?
Yeah, the high school auto shop. So it's no longer run by the high school. It's now run by the college. So now that it's college funded, they got a bunch of equipment in there. They've got new alignment racks. They're sponsored by Subaru now. They have two, like 2017 Subaru STIs for the kids to tear apart. So that's kind of crazy. They're no longer allowed to work on their own vehicles, which is a bummer, but I think that's more of an insurance thing. It was like Fort Knox getting in there today. Yeah. You have to go check in, go through this little cubicle that's all glass, get a name tag before you can enter the building. But the instructor may be spending some time there this summer, setting up new equipment and preparing for next year. So that might give me a chance to get over there and take some time to use the equipment and film some videos while there's not a bunch of kids around asking too many questions or messing up the video. But if they're interested in learning, you know, I'm okay showing them stuff, but I'd rather not interfere with the the teacher's curriculum. And as you guys see, I'm not marking any of this stuff. If it's your first time taking one of these apart, you may want to mark stuff. But I've had a bunch of these apart over the years. So I just kind of throw it all in a pile and assemble it later. And what's funny is I just threw away a bunch of parts for one of these that had been sitting in my shed. And I'm like, I'll never work on another one of these. There's not that many of them out there. And I think the scrap guy hauled them off like a week ago. And here we are, rebuilding one. Take off the fuel filter here. And then behind that, the fuel filter bracket. With the bracket off, we can remove this heater pipe. And now we're getting down to bare block. I'm going to go ahead and pull the motor mount off and the air compressor mount off. And these mounts are shaped different left to right, so I don't need to mark them. And plus this one had a strut rod attached to it to support the intake. So it's easy to identify which one goes where. And since it's so late, I'm hoping to have this whole thing apart in less than an hour. At least so we can get an idea of what parts we need to order.
You're almost at 20 minutes.
I better pick up the pace. So maybe the first hour will be just removing the accessories. I'm going to flip the motor around here.
Okay, you've got a question from Sad Taha. Hi, just had a few questions about Snap-on scanner. I currently have a Burris EEMS 323, but I can't upgrade it anymore. In your opinion, is it better to get a Burris Edge or a Zeus? And what you think is a fair trade-in price? Thanks. Sorry if I pronounced any of that wrong. I am not a mechanic.
It's a Burris
Oh, okay.
scan tool. If you're comfortable using the Virus, I would probably get the Virus again. The Zeus is, I just bought one. You may have seen a video or two of mine that have the Zeus in it. I was a little disappointed with it. The Virus, the current Virus is the same platform, but I felt that it was kind of under-spec'd. I think it should be a little faster than what it is for spending $10,000 or $11,000 on a scan tool. Is that the first time you heard how much that cost?
What?
Is that the first time you've heard how much it cost?
Now I have. The one I'm listening to is lagging behind about 8 seconds.
Okay. So this is the Zeus. The only difference between this and the Virus is the intelligent diagnostics, which is a little bit helpful, but not always.
George Bonnie 90 asks, do you know if they are having sales on the Modus?
My dealer is not. Actually, I just released a video on the new scan tool that's replacing the Modus. It's called the Triton. They haven't discontinued the Modus yet, but as of right now, they're about the same price. So you may as well get the Triton. It just came out like a week ago, and it has a faster processor and more memory. Plus, it has the intelligent diagnostics, and it's the same price as the Modus Edge. And now, some of the dealers might be blowing out the Modus Edge just to move them off their truck to make room for the Triton. But my dealer, there's a gentleman that works at the shop across the street from me that has a Solus Pro or Solus Ultra. So it's not even the current one. And with his trade-in and everything, I think he was only going to pay $3,000 for the new Triton, and the retail on that is $6,000. So they are offering pretty good trades on scan tools right now. On the Virus trade-in, depending on what what the software level is, they might give you $3,000 or $4,000. They'll give you definitely more on trade than what you'll get like on eBay, because I think I've seen some of the earlier Virus scan tools for like $1,500 with accessories. Any more?
Sad Taha said thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Now, depending on what level of software you have in your other scanner as well, sorry, I'm just removing the valve cover here, not explaining what I'm doing. And it looks pretty nasty inside. There are some benefits to just updating the software. I know the older Virus may not be updatable. I think the Solus Ultra that we have, it's only going to have one more update. 19.4 is going to be the end of life for that scan tool. So we're not going to update it. We're not going to trade it in. We're just going to keep it as a backup scanner. It works on all the older stuff. I think we're at level 17.4. So it's not brand new and up to date, but it still works for a lot of the vehicles that we're working on. It doesn't want to come off. Any other questions? So I got to remove a few brackets. The alternator's being a little stubborn. A few brackets, the exhaust shield, get the exhaust out of the way, and then we'll be almost down to a bare block.
Pico Boo says hello.
Hi, Pico.
George Bonnie 90 says great info. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Now, Peekaboo, is that like Peekaboo?
Peekaboo.
Or is that Pico like Picoscope diagnostic software?
Not sure. Sad Taha says, yeah, I can't update mine anymore. I'll definitely look into trading it since it might get a better value, like you said.
That's what I would do if you're wanting to upgrade. And if you like the Windows-based platform, then I would go with another Virus. You can go with the Zeus. Sometimes the dealers are offering great deals on the Zeus, and they just changed their pricing model at the beginning of the year where you no longer have to buy 3 years of software updates up front. You only have to buy one. So that's another $1,500 on top of the scanner price, or you can sign up for a monthly subscription. And I think on the Zeus, it's $120 a month just for the software.
Picoscope.
That's what I was thinking. We're not doing diagnostics today, just doing some engine teardown and repair. Although I mentioned in a video a couple days ago, I picked up a Picoscope basic kit, the older model. I can't remember the model number, but it's like a 6-year-old scope. But picked it up for a few $100 at the pawn shop with only 2 test leads out of the plastic. So whoever owned it didn't use it. So it's like brand new, working amp clamps. I thought that was a pretty good deal.
Sad Taha thanks you for the info. And Pico says, it's all good. Probably 4423.
Maybe it's in your drawer.
No, I don't want to knock anything out.
That sounds right. And I have the identical Picoscope, but I have the deluxe kit that I purchased from Auto Nerds 6 or 7 years ago. I guess it'd be 6 years ago. I think late 2012. And I don't use it nearly as much as I should. But now that we're doing the YouTube channel stuff and talking to a bunch of guys in the diagnostic forums, I have started using it more. So currently it takes me longer to use it than it should, just because of forgetfulness on how to set it up. And I really need to build a diagnostic cart and just leave it set up all the time, ready to go, because I think that would really make me use it more often. A lot of times I just grab the snap-on scope because I already have it in my hand because I'm scanning vehicles. And if I can't get the clarity I need, then I grab the Pico.
Yes, it was the 4423.
And if you didn't hear Valerie, that was the correct model.
And that also answers Matt Walker's question, who's behind the camera?
Nobody. She's off to the side a little bit, watching the chat and making sure that the stream stays running. Which I'm kind of surprised that we have stayed running, because our internet's been terrible down here and at home. I think Valerie was pretty much unable to stream from home the last couple days.
Okay, you have one comment and then a question. Matt Walker says, I like these videos. Brings back a lot of memories seeing the shop. I still remember when it was the old house and garage. We put in that dash piece on the Civic in there.
Mm.
And then Pico had a question. What's the engine out of?
It's out of a 88 Toyota pickup. It's the 22RE engine, 2.4 liter. A lot of people like this engine. They're somewhat reliable, but the types of failures that they have are normally expensive to fix. Head gaskets, timing chains, and this one has 250,000 miles. And it has a timing chain rattle and a slight rod knock and a little bit of piston slap.
Pico says, yes, a cart makes it much easier.
A couple of the guys in my group have posted pictures of their carts recently. Lost my socket. And it's kind of inspiring me to build another cart. Because I used to have a cart kind of set up for diagnostic, but it got filled up with tools, and my diagnostic stuff ended up in my regular toolbox, so I don't break it out nearly as often. This pipe here is the other pipe for the heater core. So I think we're pretty much stripped down of all the accessories. We're almost down to just the bare bones of the block. Let me move some stuff out of my way so I can start draining more fluids.
Pico says, so normal Toyota. It don't break unless it's expensive.
Pretty much. Back when I was in high school, Matt Walker in the comments, I went to high school with him. I built one of these engines in auto shop. And that went into one of my first vehicles I drove. And it never blew up, but I think it lasted about 3,000 miles before the head gasket went bad. But in all fairness, I used like a $100 engine gasket set. At the time, I didn't know that you should buy a Velcro gasket set. So I'm going to pull the water pump off, and then we'll pull the cylinder head off.
Walker says, BT Paris?
PT.
Capital BT / Paris! Exclamation point. Sorry, Matt.
Is that a song or a band? Trying to remember. It seems like that might be a song that we listen to a lot in Matt's car with subwoofers and...
Oh, it's the sound system test.
Wait, is that the one that I beat you on? You got a way better memory than I do, Matt.
He laughs.
I do think I upset you that day. I mean, in all fairness, I had a Toyota pickup with two 12-inch subwoofers and two 6x9s and two 6-inch speakers, and you had your car with the same stuff, but I had a lot less area to fill.
He said, you liked it in your truck. Had that big bass hit. Kenwoods.
That's right. I think they were Kenwood Thunders. Unfortunately, the subwoofers were purple. But I think I gave like $100 for the subs and the amp. So that's not too bad.
Walker had MTX.
Yeah, I think so. And actually, Bucket came in the other day, if you remember who that nickname went to. And he was driving a Nissan or something, but I remember in his Chevy Extreme S10, he had that 15-inch square subwoofer. I can't remember who made that, if that was a Kicker. But That thing was loud, and it took up like his whole back seat. I think he even cut out part of the back of the cab to fit it, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. Okay.
He laughed.
Get a bigger impact to that. And I don't know how the sound is in the video. Let us know if anything's wrong. It's our first time live streaming down here at the shop, and we don't have all the control that we have at the house. Missing a socket.
Is it the one you dropped on the floor earlier?
Oh, maybe.
It's by the back wheel.
That's it.
Don't hit your head. And then Walker asks, Charles?
Yep. That's the one.
Walker says it sounds great. Pico says it sounds good. Where are you at?
We're in Colorado. A couple hours south of Denver. Let's see, about the same size. So now we are moving on to hidden bolt number 2 that most people forget and they break stuff. After you pull this distributor drive gear off of the front of the camshaft, there's a puddle of oil, and down in this puddle of oil is a 12 millimeter headed bolt that goes straight down into this area of the timing cover. So we often get these trucks in here leaking from this area and everything's kind of nice and clean. That's because someone just did a head gasket on it, they didn't remove the bolt, they tried pulling the head off, and they cracked the timing cover. I think the first one of these that I did, I was probably 14, and my dad told me that it was going to be my truck. It was a 87 or 88 turbocharged four-wheel drive Toyota pickup, and it had a bad head gasket. So he told me if I took it apart, he would put it back together. So I took the whole thing apart, no idea what I was doing, and he put it back together. And I got to drive it around our farm for about 6 months, and he sold it. What's that?
Pico says, cool, I'm from Nova Scotia, Canada. And then we have a question from Rick King. Are there stoners staggering around everywhere?
There are some. Why is it always Colorado? I mean, most of the states are also legal, but there are a lot of pot users in Colorado. I wish a lot of the people that moved into Colorado when it was one of the few states that was legal, I wish now that more states were legal, they would move back home, because we do have an influx of vagrants and homeless people, and probably crime as well. But in our area, it's not terrible. It's a lot worse than it was 10 years ago. But it's not as bad as other places. Is there another question?
Walker has a comment. I tried to move from that talk. Everyone asks about it now after I say where I'm from. So annoying.
And that bolt there is always stuck in there. The oil's kind of caked up. I think it goes near a EGR port or something. Yeah, it gets kind of annoying, but I think our governor recently was on the news with a bunch of other governors trying to pass a workaround because it's still federally illegal, even though the states say it's okay. There was something like 45 states are legalized now for at least medical. So it's a huge majority that's legal now. So they're trying to get the government to just stand down and okay it. I mean, it really doesn't bother me because I don't use it. So it doesn't matter if it's legal or not. Wasn't wanting that whole head to come off. The rocker shaft should come off here, but it's kind of stuck. The rocker shaft assembly is held on by the head bolts, so once you pull those off, the whole head tries to lift.
Pico said, it's legal all across Canada. I do not partake though.
Yeah, I think I heard that it was legal in Canada. I think a lot of the marijuana stocks are from Canada, if I remember right. Like people that do day trading and stuff in the stock market. Since it's federally illegal here, we don't have that type of stock market. So most people go and buy it through Canadian stocks. That's what our old neighbor used to do.
The Denver one?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I'm going to pull the camshaft. The cam bearing caps are already marked, and they have arrows showing which direction they need to go. So Peekaboo, are you with Picoscope, or do you just have an automotive YouTube channel or a scope-based YouTube channel?
Walker says, I remember how careful we were with our rebuilds in shop. I see you now just throwing around.
Oh, you brought it up, Matt. You shouldn't have brought it up. I don't remember being as careful as you in auto shop. I vaguely remember the auto shop teacher questioning your masculinity because you were putting bolts into baggies and labeling it.
Yeah, he just commented bags.
That's what I remember. And I think he did it again when you got the old Cougar up and running, because it was knocking after you rebuilt the engine, and it luckily only ended up being the cylinder heads my dad traded you for had taller rocker arms and they were hitting the valve cover.
Pico commented, none of the above. His last comment before that was about it's legal in Canada, but he doesn't partake.
I was asking a question of if he had an automotive YouTube channel.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Do you use the Picoscope, the automotive version, or do you use like their commercial industrial version? Because I know they make more than what we use. We just use like a 4-channel. I wish we had an 8-channel, or I wish I could connect both of the Picoscopes I have onto one laptop and run 8 channels at once. You normally don't need it, but sometimes it'd be nice to have. This is gonna be gross.
Do you want me to hold it?
No, I'll just put it on the bench. I know when I flip the engine over, stuff's gonna leak out, so I don't want to put it in there. Okay, the head gasket looks like it was about ready to pop. Let's see, maybe this will slide off of here.
How can you tell? That's me asking.
Not sure if I can tilt this down and make it visible. It's really swelled up around the coolant passages. So right here in the gasket material, there's little holes for the coolant to go through. It's starting to swell up and the coolant's soaking into the gasket. And before too long, you'll get spots where it starts to weaken the gasket next to the piston, and then it will start to burn, and then it starts blowing combustion gases into the coolant, and then it starts overheating. Or it's like our 4Runner, and when you start it up, it runs rough. I have a Toyota 4Runner with a 3.4 liter engine that's had actually that is blown out right there. It's had a bad head gasket for I've known about it for over a year, and it was Valerie's daily driver. And when that happened, we just kind of limited to in-town use. And then when I sold my other house, I don't know if you knew that, Matt, I sold my house over on 3rd. I had some extra money, so Valerie has a 2007 Highlander hybrid now, which I got a bunch of videos on this channel for that. It's kind of a perfect guinea pig because there's not a lot of hybrid content out there, and it's my own, so I have to do all the maintenance on it. Okay, a bunch of stuff will probably run out here.
Pico says auto version. Rick King says rode a motorcycle around Colorado a few years back. Awesome. I am from Ohio.
What kind of motorcycle? We have dirt bikes. I built a cafe bike a few years ago, but sold it because it was terrible to ride. And I had a Kawasaki Versys that we rode around a little bit. The first day I had it, me and Valerie went for a ride, and my foot slipped out on gravel, and she got really upset at me. I mean, we weren't moving anywhere. I just dropped the bike at a stop sign.
No, we did move. We fell off the bike. Pico says also have a Vantage Pro, and Rick rides a Goldwing.
Okay. One of my old employees had a Goldwing. His was kind of older. I think it was from the 80s. So he was constantly having carburetor issues. Right now I have a KTM 400 dirt bike, and Valerie has a Honda 200 dirt bike, but we haven't ridden the bikes in 2 years. I haven't ridden my bike in 2 years. Probably been a lot longer for Valerie.
6 or 7 years.
But we just went to the National Supercross, the AMA Supercross at the Mile High Stadium, which I think I heard this was the first year that they've actually done events in the Mile High Stadium. It's kind of weird to see a football stadium converted to a Supercross. And Matt, I don't know if you probably don't remember them. I don't want to give names on here. But one of our old high school friends or classmates raced in the national race. He made it to the last chance qualifier, but he got last place in that. So he made it through all the morning qualifying, but he got knocked out in the last chance qualifier. So that was kind of cool to see. It was freezing cold. Traffic was terrible. You spent a lot more time in Denver than I did, but we spent an hour from the interstate to the parking lot, only to find out that there was no parking. And we had to go a couple of miles. We found a rent-a-spot and hired an Uber to get back to the stadium.
It was an hour and a half.
And we ended up missing probably the first hour or half hour of the races.
Half of it.
So that was kind of a bummer because Valerie bought the tickets ahead of time and they weren't cheap.
Walker says, I've seen some of your hybrid videos. I didn't know you sold. Congratulations.
Didn't know I what?
Didn't know you sold. The house on 3rd
Oh.
Street, maybe?
I didn't realize it was Matt asking the question.
Sorry, yeah. And then Rip says, started out on a dirt bikes, then a crotch rocket, then a gold wing, have ridden in 42 states.
Huh.
Cool.
You haven't ridden over to Hawaii yet? Now, I do think it'd be cool to like go to Hawaii and rent like a scooter and travel around that way. Oh, that's not pretty. So, you guys won't be able to see down in here because it's all black, but when there's big chunks, that's all plastic, that's timing chain guides out of the oil pan. Can't see that, but that's a piece of bearing. So we got metal and plastic in the oil pan.
Matt Walker says, not sure who you are talking about, frowny face. Holy cow. Surprised though, Denver has too many people.
Denver does. And I don't know if you knew this, Matt. I don't know if they started the project before you moved, but they're turning I-70 into an underground highway. So I-70's closed down, and it sucks because it was just terrible. Like traveling around northern Denver is very difficult to get places.
Pico commented, my brother had an 07 R1 that was tuned up a bit. He had it up to 220 miles per hour.
I can imagine, but I myself wouldn't do it. I had my KTM over 100 once on dirt, and that was scary enough. I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit afraid of crotch rockets just because of how fast they can go. And I know if I'm riding one, I'm probably going to ride it fast. So I won't buy one. And I know that I would end up riding over my ability because I don't have experience riding a crotch rocket. So on the front here, I'm going to pull the oil pump off. They're normally not worn out, but since we're rebuilding it for a customer and not personal, I'll probably just order a new one. Parts for these are actually pretty inexpensive. I think the whole rebuild kit with pistons, if I need them, will be under $400.
Rick King says, good thing for pickup screens.
Yeah, I think this one went a little too far though. And I don't know if that is the timing chain guides from this go around. Here's part of the oil pump. And then here's the drive spacer. The timing chain was rattling, and there's a piece of guide right down here. So that could be all from this time, or if somebody's done timing chains in the past, that could be from the previous repair. Because a lot of people don't pull the oil pan to pull the pieces out.
S&A Auto Repair. Sorry I'm late. Midnight Auto Repair?
It's getting pretty late. I don't know what time it is.
It's 10:20.
Aren't you on the East Coast? You guys are always up way later than I am. I had to turn my phone onto nighttime mode because he's in our group chat. Because the thing dings all night long. Especially, it turns off in night mode at 5 a.m. when I get up. But if I tried sleeping in the other day, and it was just like ding, 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 ding. Because everyone on the East Coast, it's 7 o'clock. You guys are up and going to work. So since you're late to the show, 88 Toyota pickup, timing chain rattle, piston slap, rod knock, engine shops 2 weeks to 4 weeks out. So we decided to build it ourselves.
Pico commented, neither did the guy that bought his. He smashed it up the next day. He had to be airlifted to the hospital.
That's not good. They're bikes are dangerous, and things turn bad really quick. There's one more bolt. The last hidden bolt. I don't want to flip the engine around, but there's one timing cover bolt that comes in from the back side of the block. Almost forgot it. more than likely the timing cover will get replaced anyways, because normally there's a hole in it from the timing chain guides breaking, and then the chain wears the hole through it. We used to weld them up, but now you can buy a whole cover for like 30-40 bucks, so it's not worth the time and effort to get all the oil out of the aluminum before you weld it.
S&A Auto Repair. Yep, midnight here.
You guys are crazy.
And it is 1:20 a.m. where Pico is.
So let me get a little bit closer here. I don't know if I'm still in focus or not. Did it focus yet?
Yeah.
So right here is where the timing chain starts wearing into the cover. A few more millimeters and it goes right into this coolant passage, and then all your coolant goes into the oil and the engine starts knocking very quickly. And a lot of times when that happens, if people drive them too long, it'll ruin the block. So we're going to replace that with a new one because I don't feel like cleaning that up enough to TIG weld it up.
And just so you know, you are 56 minutes in.
Dang it. I was hoping to get this done in an hour, but I suppose talking while working slows down the process a little bit. I'm going to pull what's left of the guide off. So this guide here is supposed to be L-shaped. It comes out further and then there's a side to it, but it's plastic. The old original 22R motors, the carbureted ones, had a metal timing chain guide, and you used to have to do some modifications to put metal guides in, but now most companies offer a heavy duty kit that has the metal guides in the kit already and the right timing chain for the application. Oil pickup tube.
S&A Auto Repair. I just got into the midnight job. I'll be here all night. Go as long as you like.
A desk job? If you're watching me, you're probably not getting much work done. Let's see. One more bolt.
Matt Walker says, probably my fault again. Always distracting.
Yeah, hashing up, high school memories and the stuff we do. Your mom still calls me the criminal. Last time she was in here, she called me that. It's like, we never got in that much trouble, Matt. And I think most of it, you must have went home and told your mom what we were doing. Because my parents never knew. Okay, now we need to make sure that these pistons are marked before we pull them out. Let's see. I need a flashlight. Now, I was always taught to mark these on the oil filter side. For a short time in high school, I worked for the local engine shop, the one that's too busy to do this. And I don't know how I ended up in the position, but I probably wanted money and my dad told me I had to work for it. So I would go in on Saturday mornings to the engine shop and I would just tear apart engines. And I didn't have a driver's license, so I had to have been like 14 or so. But their shop was just a couple blocks from my dad's work, so I just walked up there from my dad's work whenever he'd go in on Saturdays and tear stuff apart.
I'm sorry. S&A Auto Repair just said New York City Transit buses, no desk job here.
So now I saw Bus Jockey was in our group as well. He was in Auto Nerds, the Pico group there, back when I was active in like 2013. So he's been using Picoscope and posting random waveforms from transit buses all the way back then. I don't know if he talks much in the group. I haven't seen him comment on anything. So do you have to repair all the buses at night when they're not running? Like, is it a full night job and then you sleep during the day?
Kiko says, all of those engines are gone around here, along with the vehicles. 10 years old is tops around here.
This one, the bedsides are like halfway rusted out and the cab's all in good shape. Everything else is kind of rough. I mean, 250,000 miles. But the guy works at a concrete plant, and he's been daily driving this to the concrete plant every day for, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 years. And it's not, he considered getting a new truck, but, and he has another truck. He has a newer Dodge, but anything he drives to work is going to be covered in concrete dust, and then it destroys the paint. So he'd rather spend a little bit of money getting this one up and running. I myself, I don't think I can ever go back to one of these motors because they don't have enough horsepower.
Matt Walker says, and your accomplice is there.
Yep, she's standing behind the camera. Did you guys see the bonus footage on my Triton video?
Sure did. It was excellent.
While I was getting stuff set up and ready for my my Triton video, Valerie decided to give her own rendition of what the difference was between the two scanners. Okay, so I have letter punches 1 through 4. I know you guys can't see everything I'm doing in here, but there's two halves of the bearing cap. There's the rod and then the cap. I'm going to put a number 1 on both pieces, and I'm going to do it on the oil filter side. Now, it doesn't matter much because there's a notch on the piston to indicate front. So even if I didn't do this and I just marked them on either side, I could get them in the right direction.
S&A Auto Repair, I'm supposed to fix them. No sleep here. Running S&A all day.
Sounds like a good deal. Since you weren't here earlier, I don't know if you saw the post I put in the group the other day about the high school giving me the opportunity to use some of their modules. I went over there today to see what they have, and they have demonstration boards that cover HVAC control units with the blend doors, the whole unit, so it simulates an actual car with an AC compressor. And that one has a thermal expansion valve. And then in their classroom, they have a orifice tube demonstration board, and you can add restrictions to that one to see how it affects the AC cooling. And then I didn't do a very good job of marking that one.
Kiko says letter punch 1 through 4, and then there's this face.
Number punch, not letters. The box says letter punches, but it has 0 through 9 and the alphabet.
S&A Auto Repair, it's a New York thing.
Okay.
Rick King commented, I always punch an arrow on rod cap pointing to front.
It looks like all of these actually have a little niche pointing towards the front. So it's really just to identify what cylinder they came out of, and a lot of people say that doesn't really matter anyways, especially because if it threw a rod bearing, we're probably going to replace the crank. We might have to replace a rod or two or recondition them. Anything like that, the machine work part of it, I don't have the equipment here at the shop to do. So my engine guy, he's going to lose out on the engine build, but I'm probably going to force him to do the machine work for me.
S&A Auto Repair, Keith don't sleep either.
I've noticed that. I struggle when I get less than 6 hours of sleep. Normally I'm right around 6 hours. I rarely get 8 hours. But sometimes if I go too long, pulling late nights like this, and getting 5 hours of sleep, then I have to sleep in on a weekend, and I'll sleep in until like 9 or 10. But even then, that's probably because we went to bed at 11 or 12.
Matt Walker asks, what if you put number 1 rod into number 4?
That's not good, Matt.
Then you get number
Wait,
5.
if you just flip-flopped them, it probably, yeah, add them together. You get number 5. If you just put the whole assembly from 1 into 4, if we're putting a new crankshaft in, all new bearings, it probably wouldn't matter much. From the factory, the pistons are sized accordingly. I think they have like A through C or A through D, and they're just like a half thousandths oversized on some of the holes, depending on what their machining tolerances were. So it's possible that one might fit a little loose and the other a little tight, but it probably wouldn't affect much. If you put like the bearing cap from one onto the wrong one, the engine may not even spin over because the machine surfaces wouldn't be the same. Okay, they're all marked. The main caps are factory marked. The center one's not marked, but it's the only oddball. And yeah, it's not marked. So we know where it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the rod caps off. Maybe. See, I still got 3 bar. I charged this battery like 2 weeks ago, and I use this thing daily. This is the 9 amp hour Milwaukee battery. The thing is crazy. It just lasts forever. The new Cornwell guy that we got had a special on it. If you bought one battery and the charger for like $100, you got the second battery for free. And if you go on Amazon, I think those batteries are over $100 a piece. Sorry, question?
No, Pico said, I have to tear down an engine on a Kia Rondo because of a knock. Has an aftermarket warranty and they want it torn down.
Can you even get parts for those? Yeah, those. Is that like the one that looks like a small minivan? It kind of looks like the old Mazda MPV, if I'm thinking right. Those, seems like it wouldn't be hardly worth the engine. But I guess if they have an extended warranty, then let them pay you for it. And I didn't worry about removing the ring ridge because Toyotas rarely get that. So the old V8 motors, you used to have to use a tool to grind the ring off of the cylinder wall. Otherwise the piston wouldn't come out. I don't ever see that on the Toyotas. So the top ring on number 1 is free. The second compression ring is froze up. And the oil ring's froze up. The bearing's not too bad. It's lost its finish and it's got some pitting in it, but it didn't make its way down to the copper yet. What do I do with the cap? Oh, it fell down in the engine.
Pico. Yeah, it's a 2014. It's a Canadian-only car, apparently.
Yeah, the ones I'm thinking of are from like the mid-2000s. Already lost my mark. There it is. Kias they're not terrible vehicles. They used to be very cheap, and you'd get about 100,000 miles out of them, and then you would just buy another car because they weren't worth fixing at that point. But now they're more expensive. It seems like they're almost as much as the Honda vehicles. But they're still super expensive to fix, and they don't retain their value as much, is what I've noticed. Same with the Hyundais. I remember back in high school, my neighbors, they had 2 girls that were turning 16 around the same time, getting their driver's license. They went down to Hyundai, bought 2 Hyundai Accents, brand new on the showroom floor, with bare bones, roll-up windows, and I think they were $6,000 a piece. And they had the choice, the girls had the choice if they wanted air conditioning or a CD player. and both of them chose a CD player. Oh man. And since they were older than my sister, we would catch a ride with them sometimes to school. And when it was almost summertime, it was miserable. I mean, for like $100 you could add a CD player, but you can't add air conditioning. So that bearing is shot. We're all the way down to the, I don't know, is that copper? I can't remember. But can you see that on the camera?
No.
Let me get closer for you. Probably takes a second to zoom.
Put your other hand behind it.
Trying to focus on something else.
It just blends in with everything in the background.
Well, that bearing's pretty well shot. It didn't spin the bearing. At least, yeah, it did not spin the bearing, so the rod is okay still.
Pico said, cheap to buy, expensive to fix.
Yep.
Matt Walker says, brass? Question mark?
Well, you might know better, but maybe the commercial applications that you deal with may have a heavier duty bearing. And they probably are a lot bigger than this. What's the average rod journal size on the engines you work with, Matt? Okay, rotate the engine over again once I find a rag. Got 2 more to go.
Matt Walker, full steel on ours, 3 to 4 inch.
Yeah, not quite that big here. I'm guessing these are just under a 2-inch rod journal. But you're comparing what, 1,600 horsepower or more, and this has 115.
6 to 7 inch mains.
This bearing is trashed as well, but it didn't spin it, so we're still good on the rods.
Matt Walker, 3,500 out of the 78 liter.
Yeah, if I bore and stroke this one, Matt, I think we'll be close. I might have to run it up to to Indiana, and you can dyno it for me.
5,000 horse out of the 95.
Now, you guys didn't work on the 95 liter in Denver, did you? I thought at the time they were expanding to work on the 60 liter. Or is that a thing they only do where you're working now? So this one's not down to the copper, but this one got hot. The bearing's black. It didn't spin it, so we're still good.
Can they get hot enough to catch on fire? That's me asking.
Yes. We bought it when we had our car lot. We bought a couple of cars and we decided to drive them back instead of trailering them back. Mm-hmm. And my brother was driving one, and it was a Toyota Camry. It started knocking or squeaking, but we just bought the car. It had a factory radio, but he had the radio cranked. I guess I don't know. That's what I remember. He's in front of me on the interstate, and all of a sudden I see smoke start coming out. He pulls over, and the engine's on fire. It actually it got really hot. Threw a rod out, oil sprayed out onto the exhaust, and it caught on fire. Luckily, it went out fairly quick. But they can get hot enough to cause the oil to combust. But it normally doesn't last too long, unless it catches something else on fire, like fuel or wiring, which is what happened to my brother's other vehicle. He just bought it, Toyota 4Runner. Someone had put a used engine in. It had a fuel leak. We knew it had a fuel leak, but he decided to go drive it anyways. And fuel leaked out onto an ignition wire that was bad. Caught it on fire, the whole vehicle burnt to the ground. Of course, it was 30 miles into the mountains. So we pretty much drag raced. We didn't break any laws. I'm sure the speed limit was 100 miles an hour. But we drove as fast as we could up there. We grabbed a bunch of the shop fire extinguishers. We got there. We were almost there. We could see smoke, and then there's this big cloud. And I guess that's when the gas tank finally combusted. And it didn't like just blow up, but it started spraying fuel out of the filler neck because it melted the gas cap. And sprayed flames all over this prairie. So luckily with the fire extinguishers we had, we put out the grass fire. And the fire department didn't show up until 4 hours later. Because the volunteer fire chief that was on duty got the call, but he was drunk. And he called dispatch and said that it was a false alarm. He lost his job.
I didn't know that part of the story.
And that same night, he went to the bar, picked a fight with a guy that had a prosthetic leg, and got his butt kicked by the guy.
With the leg?
I don't know. But his mugshot in the paper, and that was when the other mechanic that was still a cop, when he was still on duty at the force, he got the call to go arrest him. They had to go up the mountain to his house. He was trying to find him. He found him because the guy was talking to his cell phone in a tree. So he arrests him, and his mugshot in the paper, he was this big old black guy from picking a fight with that guy. Yeah, he lost his job.
Your thumbnail should be that mugshot for this video.
He's still a customer of ours, so that probably wouldn't be a good thing. He'll never see it. I have a hard time getting my employees to watch my videos, let alone other people from my town. Although my new employee told me that he watched my alignment video because he was working at an alignment shop before he started here. And when he heard that I had a video, he watched it, and none of the other guys at the shop would watch it. They refused to watch it.
To your story, Matt says criminal.
It wasn't me that time, Matt. So this bearing has some blacking on it. That's kind of a weird pattern. It's almost like the block is misformed. I don't think we really want to get this thing line honed. It'll probably be all right. It's probably just a deformation in the bearing surface. I wish you guys could see that.
I'm going to read you a comment from Matt Walker. Still new product, but some are being rebuilt in Seymour engine plant. Once more to get...
Is that on YouTube or message to you?
No, it's on your YouTube video. Still new product, but some are being rebuilt in Seymour engine plant. Once more, get to end of life. The rebuild centers will need to pick up the excess. Denver has the capability to rebuild the 95, mostly in locomotive and generator applications. And then Pico says, that's your shop?
It's a family shop. My dad owns it. I'm the shop foreman. I've worked here for 12 years now. So a long time. Matt Walker in the chat, I went to high school with him. We used to work in my dad's old shop. We had a small 2-car or 2-big shop back then, and this one was built right as we were getting out of high school. And unfortunately, I did not want to be a mechanic, or fortunately, I don't know how well that goes, but I wanted to be an audio engineer. So right out of high school, I moved to Arizona and went to school for audio engineering, which that information has come in handy, not for like car stereo stuff like that, but we had a big portion of our training was on, I would say probably 6 weeks of training on signal flow. So that training right there is very useful, and I use that every day because it really breaks down where your power is coming from, where it's trying to get to, and how to diagnose when it's not going where it needs to go. We also learned Ohm's law and all that stuff, which, I don't know, maybe it's second nature, but I never break out a calculator and calculate stuff anymore. Got one cap here that's stuck. Oh, and our current shop is, we got 4 garage doors. We used to have 3 techs. Those were the good days. We had a lot of room each. We had, let's see, 1, 2, we had 3 2-post hoists and then 1 drive-on rack. We didn't do alignments. All we did was general repair, maintenance, pretty much everything but alignments and engine repair, rebuilds. But we've grown so much that we needed more technicians, but we don't have a bigger shop. So we divided the bays, and now we have 2 posts in my bay, 1 for me, 1 for my brother, and then we added another one down there. So we used to have 1 2-post and then a flat bay and then a flat bay behind us, and now we have like a bay and a half each. So we're kind of limited. We're running out of space.
Pico said, "You look to be about the same age as me."
Early 30s is what I'm at.
SNA Auto Repair, how's the hiring pool out there?
Terrible. The new guy I hired applied here 3 years ago. So we've had some applicants in the meantime, but nothing promising. 2 of my employees are from out east. One of those employees just retired from being a mechanic. He's choosing a different path. And the employee I just hired, he applied 3 years ago. I knew what shop he was working at. I just sent him a message on Facebook, said, "Hey, if you're still interested, swing by." And he came by, and he wasn't doing as much mechanical as he wanted to. He wasn't progressing or learning new things. It was kind of the same thing over and over again. It was a tire and alignment shop. So he came here, and hopefully he can excel, and we can teach him new things, which he wants to learn. So that's always a good thing. It's always good to have an employee that wants to learn. So the hiring pool isn't great. I had to go back a couple years in applicants to find an employee. We had 2 other applicants for oil change position, but we decided to hold off for now. And my brother used to do oil changes. We moved him to light duty. The new guy does oil changes and light duty, so they just alternate on oil changes and then do our regular light duty stuff as well. Brake jobs, shocks, struts, maintenance stuff. So this is pretty much taken apart. I know some guys keep everything in order, all their bearings and whatnot, but I never do. I just take them out. The bearings don't look terrible. I'll have to mic the crankshaft, get it polished up. If it's still in spec, we'll use it. But normally it's just easier to get a whole crank kit, a reground crank, because it'll come with bearings already. The pistons I would prefer to replace because it did have piston slap. But we'll see if the customer wants to go through that expense. The piston slap won't cause too many issues. It's more of an annoyance on cold start. Maybe a slightly higher oil consumption.
Pico is 36 years old.
Pretty close.
S&A auto repair. It's a major problem here.
It is. And I really want to do a video about it, but I haven't had time to sit down and write down all the stuff. I'll talk about it in this video because it's not just we're just kind of talking about everything. But there's an article out there that says that the mechanics that are retiring and new job positions available, or people that are switching jobs, there are 75,000 mechanic positions opening every year. Currently, the capacity of the schooling system in the United States that trains technicians, whether that be high school auto shop, college education for auto repair, they are producing 35,000 technicians a year. So we're lacking 40,000 technicians every year, and that's why the job pool is nothing. I think that now our school has made a huge jump, our high school, into we had a meeting over there, advisory board meeting, a huge jump into getting kids into vocational and labor jobs, because there's a lot of jobs out there for computer stuff, but it's a very competitive field, and it could be hard to get a job. If you're not the top tier, then you're not going to get the job. The mechanic industry, I think we're going to see a big rise in what our labor rates are in shops, what it costs to repair a car, because trained technicians are becoming obsolete. We don't have enough people being trained to become a mechanic. And the people that say you can't make, in other people's videos, I've seen comments like, why are you getting kids' hopes up for being a mechanic? You get their hope. I mean, they need that hope to become a mechanic because they need to go to school and get as much education as possible, because this isn't a simple field to be in. Now, me and Matt, we went to high school auto shop together, but I grew up around cars and he grew up loving anything motorsports related. I didn't care that much about cars. I could look at a bunch of old cars and I couldn't even tell you what they are, even new cars. I don't have the passion for cars, but I'm good at repairing the cars. Matt, on the other hand, loved cars, and he had to work a little harder to become proficient in the mechanical field than I did, because I'd been doing it for so much longer with my dad. But you can learn it. I think some people learn it really easy. We had some people in our auto shop that had no business being in our auto shop, and I think they were just there because they thought it would be an easy class. They didn't care about automobiles. They had no training. A lot of them, I don't think they even had a car. They probably didn't want to drive around. They probably still don't drive around.
That's why I took that class, and it was the hardest class I ever took in high school. I never would want to do it again.
But you didn't take auto shop. You took car carrot maintenance, right?
Yeah. No, but we still had to learn about pistons and stuff, and it was hard because I don't even know what a piston is. I do after watching you work. I was paying attention.
We used to call that class car wash class.
My car was squeaky clean.
So I think that's about it on this. Most of this stuff's going to go in the hot tank. Luckily, we have a hot water parts washer, and that's going to take care of all of this. I don't know if you want to come around and say hi.
Huh?
Do you want to come around and say hi?
You want me to read you these last comments?
Sure, I'll answer the comments first.
S&A auto repair, because trade school placements don't look good for high schools. Only college placements count. Matt Walker says, I feel like the next generation sees these types of job as not glamorous or less than desirable. Need to find a way to teach the need and value of these positions.
So we'll touch on some more stuff about that. What our local high school is doing. They just got into this program where they can delay your high school graduation by 2 years, and you can transfer from the high school to the college as a high school student. So the government pays for your college education as long as it's in, I think, a vocational and maybe like the EMT and nursing fields. So I don't know how glamorous that'll be for students to say, okay, I'm not going to graduate with my class. I'm going to graduate 2 years later. But you get 2 years of college tuition for free because you're technically still a high school student. That's something they were just talking about at our advisory board meeting. And one of the ASE board members was at the meeting. And we're just a small town, but our program is doing so much work to make these kids advance in blue collar work that it's getting noticed. Now we're a small town. Our town population is 15 to 20,000. Our high school population is probably 500. Last year, they had 168 students go through a class that offered college credits. So there are 168 students that are almost getting their associate degree, and they might even get their associate degree after this graduation year. So that's huge. The next closest school in Colorado, including all the Denver schools, all the big schools, had 58 students. So we have over 3 times the amount of students that are excelling, trying to get their college credits. I can't remember what they call it when you get the college credit and your high school credits at the same time. But 168 students doing that in our school out of a class of 500 to 600, or a population of 500 to 600. And you can start getting those as early as freshman year. So you can technically get 6 years of college, is what they were saying, if they start taking college level classes in their freshman year, and then they do the 2 years after high school at a college as a high school student. They can get 6 years of college education for free.
Gee.
So they can start in the mechanic field without the debt of either a community college or a trade school, which is amazing. Any other questions?
Pico says, that's how I am. I like to diagnose and fix. Couldn't be bothered to have a project car. George says, good live stream. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for watching.
Matt Walker says, awesome. That's amazing. And Pico says, that ain't small. My town has just over 2,000. Yeah, 2,000.
Huh.
Had to make sure I read that right.
That's not a lot. I think that's it.
That's all the comments that are coming in.
Okay. I'll have Valerie come around. She was my comment reader and my technical operator.
I was the mispronouncer. The mispronouncer of many words. This isn't my type of video. I typically just do review videos on scanner tools. It was nice to meet you all. Hi, Matt. Tell your mom hi.
That's Valerie.
That's me.
So if there's no other questions or comments, we're going to wrap this one up. It's really late. How far over my hour did I go?
33 minutes.
Yeah. An hour and a half to tear down a motor while live streaming and talking. It's not bad.
Yeah, you did stop a lot to talk.
It probably would have taken me longer to do this during business hours than it did right now because I do so much other stuff. I help the other guys. I'm running around all over the place. So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to do it after hours. So I figured since I'm doing it after hours, do it as a live stream. So thanks for watching. I don't know when the next live stream will be. I'll probably have other videos coming out soon. So see you next time.